Lior, Ben, and Eddie. Today we're talking about what do you do if you are a coach or a scrum master with a team and you're not really sure what the team does, or you're not really passionate about what the team does? Is that a bad thing? Is it a good thing? Does it help or hurt the job that you're able to do? And I'm really curious with everyone here on the call, has there been times where you were just not really interested in the product that a team was building, or just didn't really know much at all, but still were able to do your job well enough that it didn't really matter? Just throwing it back to the team to see what your experience has been and how it's impacted you.
I've been in both situations. There's definitely a plus if you understand what they're building and you think it's really cool. But I've noticed that plus didn't really help me do my job better. I spoke a little bit more in the meetings. I would throw off like some clever ideas, almost as though I was helping them do product design, and I cracked a few more jokes. But in terms of what I saw my role to be, which is to listen for things that are being said that are important, to do an excellent job in facilitation, to create the best possible environment for the team and everyone surrounding the team to be successful. It added for me personally, in that I was more interested in it, but it didn't really add anything to like my passion or my ability to do the job.
Yeah, and I'll actually I agree, and I think I'll add to that because I think it depends in what the culture is and what the specific situation is. Because I've been in roles where actually having no domain knowledge is beneficial. Like, it's actually beneficial not to have that. So if you've already got probably an ex-manager or a manager who's a team member who's very vocal, you've got some other passionate people on the team, like if you're not an experienced coach, in that you might feel you have to prove your worth by adding into that conversation. You're just another voice adding probably not that much detail or that much value into an already crowded situation. So sometimes having, as a coach, having the luxury of not knowing and not being able to contribute in domain stuff is actually, can be beneficial, but it depends on the context.
I think a lot of those contributions that you're talking about as well often are kind of overcompensating, kind of in terms of feeling this fear that you're not contributing in a meaningful way. And if you're not contributing in a meaningful way, then you get this kind of Marxist alienation where everything you do seems pointless or whatever. So I don't want to overcompensate by, just adding in unnecessary noise as a scrum master, specifically, or as a coach. How do I remind myself that what I'm doing is valuable and I am still contributing to this thing getting done, even if I'm not throwing in my uneducated 2 cents on how to fix the routing issue?
Every person I've ever mentored into this role, right? Whether you're coming at it from, it's you're coming out of school and you're trying to get into Agile as a young person, or the more difficult version is you've been working 5-10 years in some industry and now you're moving into this role. The most difficult thing I've had to get them to understand is it's not your role to produce work. They feel like they're not doing anything. They feel like they're not contributing value. And the value that they're contributing is on a meta level, right? Like if you're, you could say things like force multiplier or, the facilitator or the enabler. But it's your job to look at the flow. It's your job to look at the system in an overall sense and see like where are there things that are not working? Where's communication not happening? Where is there some underlying conflict that that's affecting the team, but the team members are clearly uncomfortable dealing with it, and that's causing an issue. And it's not the way that we're wired, or it's not the way that we're taught that delivering value in the workplace, we're not taught that is valuable, right? We're taught that value is getting widgets out the door. So that's been my biggest challenge to folks who are coming into this industry, to shift that mindset and go, no, this actually is the job.
I think that's an interesting point, Lior, because some people would say, how do you not care or know much about the thing that your teams are doing? And I think that the big way that I see my work is, even though I'm not the one actually coding for the thing that is going to be used by people, I'm still a big part of it by coaching the team on how to do it with a more efficiency, or with a process they feel good about, or in a way that they're going to be able to be more creative to make the thing that they're producing the best that it can be. And so in a lot of ways, even though we're not the ones doing the coding, we're still responsible for a level of quality, because we're working with the teams in a way that impacts the way that they're thinking about the work that they do. And so it's tangentially related, but it's not, we're not coders ourselves.
It might be silly because it kind of objectifies people in a weird way, but would you say that as a coach or as a scrum master, kind of the products you're creating are the team atmosphere, the collaboration, the working processes, the mindsets? Do you really see that as, look, I built this? Can you really take ownership of something like that? Or like,
Yeah. I mean, at least I see myself, what I've said recently is I feel like the developers are coding for the product, and what I'm doing is coding for the culture. And so it's like trying to figure out what makes the most sense for the teams that I'm working with, what kind of environment will work best for them, and to work with the team on figuring that out. And so I feel like that's the product that I'm producing.
That's dope. Coding for the culture. I've never heard you say that before. I like it.
One other thing I'd say, Eddie, on that, about like how do you remind yourself that what you're doing is valuable? I also like to remind myself that, you know, every time I act on behalf of the team, I inhibit their ability to learn a little bit, or I take away the opportunity for them to step up and fill that. So even on a micro level, if I know the domain and I'm jumping in to solve a problem, I'm inhibiting their ability to solve that problem, to learn, and to be a better team, like moving forward. So, you know, sometimes it's appropriate to do that, don't get me wrong, but I like to try and remind myself and people who I work with that jumping in, you know, is actually, you know, can be harmful. You may think in the short term you're helping them, and I would ask people to kind of really think, are you helping them, or are you just making sure you feel good about yourself? But you're probably actually harming them at that point.
I always have said that I feel like a good scrum master leaving a team should be painless, you know, otherwise you probably weren't a good scrum master if you've been there for 6 months or so. And just because it's painless in that sense, because the team isn't relying on you, you shouldn't misconstrue that as I'm not delivering anything. It means you've been incredibly valuable. It might mean that it's time to switch teams, but you kind of, in a weird way, you could even imagine that the best metric of knowing you've delivered value is when you start to feel like you're not contributing anymore.
Yeah. We call it coaching ourselves out of a job. You know, so there's a lot of consultants that go in and they hoard the knowledge to themselves because they don't want to lose their jobs. And we actively go in like, hey, my objective here is to not be necessary anymore.
Yeah.
I think we're trying give our viewers something practical to take away from this. And one thing I would say that is very practical when I work with teams, and I've worked in industries where I've actually known the domain quite thoroughly. I would recommend a coach ask for permission before jumping in. Like, I would recommend saying, I've got a thought, does anyone mind if I, and the term that lots of people use, would you mind if I take off my Scrum Master hat and put on my team member hat, or something like along those lines? Like, draw that divide in their minds and your own, that you're moving from being a facilitator to a operator, and also ask for permission. Don't assume that your voice is going to be welcomed or needed in that arena.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny, at a client recently, I had to be a Scrum Master for about 3 months. And I haven't actually been a Scrum Master in ages. And I couldn't help but notice, I felt like I knew too much. I felt like I was a better Scrum Master right when I was a beginner. Ben, to your point of not having the domain knowledge and not knowing what's going on, I was handicapped with regards to being able to effectively contribute anything other than what Alana was saying, coding for the culture. And it's like, it's unconscious. You know, you're still, if you have the knowledge, it's going to come out of you in drips and drops, even if you intend not to. So I love that.
I mean, one other thing that I'd like to add in as well is that if you are feeling like you are not delivering value, or you're having some kind of anxiety about, you know, not being useful enough in your job and feel like you need to contribute more, to just also like check in with yourself outside of work, right? Because these things never are isolated to just the feeling of insecurity in the workplace, it's also probably a good time to think about where you are with your own mental health, with your own self-value, your own self-respect. So good.
Awesome point, Eddie. Yeah, definitely. Well, this has been really a great conversation. Eddie, Lee, or Ben, thank you so much. Curious to hear from our viewers. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Tell us about your own experience. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel because we have some more videos for you over there. Thank you.